By special arrangement with ITC Entertainment, Magnetic Video Corporation is proud to offer the following special video presentation.
Is that you, Benson? How you doing? So you blew the mental test, huh? Potentially unstable. I'd have been unstable too if I knew I was going to get Saturn 3. Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way for another retro LaserDisc or laser video disc showcasing video. You guys might know if you watched my recent Godfather LaserDisc showcasing video that over the last year or so I've kind of gotten into getting these old LaserDisc releases, trying to get some of the first LaserDisc releases of some of the beloved titles. In the case of Godfather, it wasn't necessarily that beloved title, but I was very curious to see what that that film to tape transfer looked like on one of the first LaserDisc releases of The Godfather. This movie, however, is a movie that ever since I was like 10 years old when I first saw it, maybe a little too young to see it, but regardless, I saw it for the first time at 10 years old. Ever since then, it's been a it's not like I watch it that often, but it's always held a really special place in my heart. And over the course of this winter, I was just like, I guess eBaying, if you will. My eBaying tends to happen a little more during the winter because there's like nothing else to do, so you find yourself laying in bed on a tablet and just dicking around on eBay. So, as I was, exploring more and more of these, old LaserDisc releases and stuff, I was kind of trying to think, what the hell would be a really cool if I could, get for a decent price, like, one of the first LaserDisc releases of, and then it occurred to me, Saturn 3 is just like, oh my god, this is actually one of my favorite movies. I've reviewed the movie in the Blu-ray years ago. I showcased the VHS counterpart to this LaserDisc by Magnetic Video. I own that VHS. I've showcased that. So Saturn 3 is a big part of my childhood and something that I've, not like I say, don't necessarily watch it that often, but I hold it in really high regard. I love the score by Elmer Bernstein. I got that CD that came out years ago or whatever. So I'm like, oh wow, getting a LaserDisc release of Saturn 3 would be cool to see that ancient, the original film to tape transfer for the home video, VHS, or in this case LaserDisc releases. So I looked online, and at first I found the CBS Fox one, and I was kind of maybe going to go with that, but then I'm like, you know what? And then I found this one, and I'm like, holy cow, they did a magnetic, alongside the VHS release, a magnetic video LaserDisc release of Saturn 3, which I can only assume is the first LaserDisc release of Saturn 3. So I got this on eBay, I watched it, enjoyed it, and I'm stopping on by to showcase Saturn 3, probably the first LaserDisc release of Saturn 3 in North America, I can imagine. As we can see on the back on the bottom corner, yeah, that's 1 year after it debuted in theaters. Copyright 1981, Magnetic Video Corporation. Taking a closer look at the front cover, as we can see on one of the top corners from ITC Entertainment, other top corner, Laser Video Disc. Under that is the Laser Vision logo, which is basically the logo for LaserDisc format. On the top you can see red stereo, and this whole packaging here is kind of like obviously in the LaserDisc shape, this circular thing. It's kind of interesting how they make the artwork kind of in the circular shape. I showcased a LaserDisc of Phantasm that I think was put out by Magnetic Video as well, if you wanted to check that out. So I got that one at Half Price Books, and I got this one off eBay. But the magnetic magnetic video releases are great because it's got that corny ass opening with that late 70s early 80s goofy ass music. So magnetic video is always fun. But on this cover art here, it's not the poster, which is kind of a bummer. I don't know if they thought because the poster was more of a rectangle they can't make that work on more of a square LaserDisc front cover, but in this case they took like a still from the beginning of the movie and kind of placed it on the front cover art. It's definitely an iconic shot from the movie. One of the images that kind of always stuck with me from the movie. They use that for the cover, which is kind of interesting. Honestly, it's maybe not the best selling image of the movie, like the original theatrical poster with Hector standing in the corridor, you know, would have been a lot more eye-catching. But as I said, they probably felt, you know, putting a rectangular poster shape image on a square package might, you know, leave a little bit to be desired, so they chose this. As you can see, the Saturn III logo more towards the bottom of the front cover here can be seen in a kind of a light blue, and on the bottom center there, extended play. Also got magnetic video logo on the bottom corner, a 20th Century Fox company.
It's hopeless.
Taking a look at the back, if you looked at some of the Fox, you know, Fox video LaserDiscs I've showcased, like Terror Train, or one of the first LaserDisc releases of Alien that I showcased years ago, or whenever the hell I did that, you know, the layout is very similar. Basically, this is, I guess, more or less 20th Century Fox, you know, video before they call it Fox Video or something, because the layout is exactly the same as the later Fox home video LaserDiscs would go to do. On this case, we can see a white back cover, the light blue Saturn III logo up top, and the abbreviated credits there with the R restricted front and center there, right on top of those black lines, which will, underneath that, we'll see how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images, all of which are really pretty cool. On the far left there, playing chess with Hector. Next picture is, you know, basically Farrah Fawcett and Kirk Douglas running for their lives. The center picture there is a classic image of Hector holding up Farrah Fawcett. And I've said before in another video where I was talking about Saturn III, before I saw this movie and I looked on the back of the video rental box or whatever, I thought he was holding a little girl because of the size of Hector. He's so much bigger than Farrah Fawcett. It looked like it was like a, you know, like a freaking 12, 13-year-old girl or something. Turns out Hector's just so big, he made Farrah Fawcett look like a 12-year-old girl. The picture next to that's pretty cool. It's like Farrah Fawcett and Hector, the standoff, and then the one on the far right is Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett trying to sneak around and survive in the thriller, horror, sci-fi film Saturn III. If there is nothing new under the sun, or in the case of sci-fi films, Out Among the Stars, the best contemporary space-oriented fictions neatly resurrect the past. In the case of Saturn III, screenwriter Martin Amis and director Stanley Donen use elements as diverse as the Bible and the myth of Frankenstein to concoct an exciting and fresh science fiction adventure. Style, intelligence, a sense of enjoyment, and the clever use of familiar story patterns distinguish this neat thriller. 2. The comely presence of Farrah Fawcett also helps. Saturn III focuses on 2 research scientists, Alex and Adam, who live in an orbiting Garden of Eden, floating amid the gaseous components of Saturn's third ring. They spend most of their time in peaceful bliss, working part of the time on advanced methods to feed Earth's burgeoning population, and spending a good deal of time getting to know one another. But it's a bliss that will not last. Into their garden paradise comes evil in the form of Captain James and his super robot, Hector. Captain James comes replete with high principles, good intentions, a jealous nature, and a good deal of repressed hostility. Hector comes replete with an 8-foot frame, superhuman strength, and Captain James' intelligence. You see, Captain James thinks of himself as a god who's made Hector in his own image, his own mental image, that is. Hector's basic programming comes from James' own mental patterns. Unfortunately, while inheriting James' consciousness, Hector also inherits the unconscious, the repressed, unshielded desires and animosities, unable to distinguish between consciousness and unconsciousness, between right and wrong. Hector goes on a murderously destructive rampage, acting out Captain James' innermost desires, and considering that James hates Adam and lusts after Alex, there's bound to be serious trouble. And considering too that Saturn III is going into an orbit which does not allow communication with Earth for 22 days, Hector may just get his way. Saturn III, like many of the more interesting science fiction films of our generation, uses the idea of machines gone out of control. As our earthbound computers become ever more sophisticated, we can't help but wonder at what point they will begin to find identities of their own. It seems to many that mankind is too close to playing God, and, as in Frankenstein, he may find that being God carries considerable dangers. In trying to build machines in our own image, we may find that our image is hardly the best model we can use. Hector in Saturn III points out that we must first understand ourselves, understand how we operate as responsible people, before we go poking around in areas that could lead to trouble. Saturn III is also a suspense thriller. Once the creature, in this case Hector, goes out of control, the film becomes a tense and exciting contest of life and death. As a suspense thriller, Saturn III is obligated not only to deliver many chilling moments of suspense, but also characters whom we care about. It succeeds royally on both counts, especially in the casting of Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett. Kirk, who's been a genuine star for almost 30 years now, is right at home as a heroic and sympathetic space pioneer. And there are many who claim that if Farrah had made her starring feature debut in Saturn III, her film career would have really taken off. See for yourself. Underneath the overly long synopsis, we've got the basically complete cast, which in this case is 3 people: Farrah Fawcett, Kirk Douglas, and Harvey Keitel. It's funny how Harvey Keitel doesn't really get any, mention necessarily in the spiel, and it should be said that it's not Captain James in this movie, it's Benson who carries out all of the mayhem and is the guy who builds and gives Hector his brain. So it's incorrect in stating it's Captain James. it is actually Benson. And because of all the extra space you get on a LaserDisc sleeve, you not only have an overly long, synopsis thing, you've got a little bit that dives into the behind the scenes, as we can see here. Saturn III, diverse talents go into making of a sci-fi spectacular. The origination of Saturn III and the diverse talents that gave it life point out the true ensemble nature of today's filmmaking process. The idea for Saturn III came from production designer extraordinaire John Barry. Martin Amis, the son of famed author Kingsley Amis and noted novelist in his own right, wrote the script, while Hollywood great Stanley Donen, one of the most stylish directors of them all, helmed the picture. Special effects wizards Stuart Craig and Colin Shilvers were called in to design Hector. Craig turned to the anatomy drawings of Leonardo da Vinci to create the massive robot. They also helped design the space station, which, when completed, turned out to be one of the biggest sets ever built in England's Shepperton Studios. Complex problems require a diversity of talents, but when they work together, they create some interesting solutions. Under the bottom, under the long spiel, it says color running time 88 minutes. You might also be able to see copyright warning information under there. You've got a little rectangle here that offers up some LaserDisc info. This video disc is extended play. In this format, it can offer chapter search, scan, pause, and dual channel sound, depending on the recorded contents. Basically on the bottom, front and center, you've got your magnetic video logo, which like I said, those early frickin' 80s home video logos are so cool because there's definitely remnants of the 70s in these logos, particularly this one. Very, very cool. On the bottom it says, when not in use, place video disc in jacket and store in cool, dry place. Taking a look at the side one label on the LaserDisc itself, got the magnetic video logo up top there, a 20th Century Fox company. Like I say, I don't know, they must have, I don't understand why they masqueraded as magnetic video. I can only assume magnetic video turned into Fox video. I'm not exactly sure the history of all that, but in any case, it's really cool to see the early 80s magnetic video logo on this label. Got the Laser Vision logo, and yes, this LaserDisc is in stereo sound, which is really cool. Analog, but I think this is before the digital sound days, but it's definitely stereo, analog stereo in this case. All important warning copyright information under the stereo. On the other side you can see the 1 indicating side 1. Catalog number 9004-80. Can see extended play under that. Oh, look at that. Okay, so the warning information is basically starts on the left side of the hole and ends on the right side of the hole. Well, how's about that? Saturn III title can be seen beneath the hole, copyright 1980 by ITC Entertainment Limited, all rights reserved. The copyright year 1981 can be found circling the outer perimeter of this side 1 label on the LaserDisc. Really cool that this LaserDisc is just 1 year shy of being as old as the movie itself. That's really pretty cool. And the side 2 label looks exactly like this, just imagine a 2 where the 1 is.
Get his brain out! Don't let go his arm!
So it was just a blast from the past watching this, what I can only assume is the original film-to-tape transfer of this, one of my favorite movies, Saturn III. This is probably the way I first experienced it back in 1987 when I saw it for the very first time. I think the VHS tape we rented was probably the magnetic video release, so it's probably the same film-to-tape transfer, I can only assume. And honestly, although this movie now exists on high definition on Scream Factory Blu-ray, and you can, at least at the time of the recording of this video, you can watch it for free on TubiTV.com. There's a really cool quaintness to this film-to-tape transfer, and I guess it has probably to do with the fact that it's the way I first saw it as a 10-year-old in 1987. And honestly, it's so amazing to me that this LaserDisc is 44 years old and is still in such great shape. There's no rot, or if there is, it's so minimal it's not even worth mentioning, but no major rot to be found. A very, really kind of a cool original home video version of Saturn III, and I found, although let's face it, the Blu-ray, the high definition Blu-ray experience is really cool, I found this way to experience the movie to be really cool as well. And like I say, this is how I saw it as a kid for the first time, so it's just really cool to own this version on this LaserDisc, which is still in really good shape, which is just astonishing to me. And it just goes to show you how great of a format LaserDisc really was. One thing that's funny about this LaserDisc version of Saturn III is if you've seen the film, you know that there's some high-pitched or high-frequency sounds in the movie a couple times when stuff is going or whatever, when Hector's going to get the little thing out of Farrah Fawcett's eye, or when Hector first comes in and is, first shown to Farrah Fawcett and Kirk Douglas character, and the music, the disco music is blocking him. There's some high frequency kind of this or that, these sounds going on, which is kind of funny to see on this analog audio of this LaserDisc release, that the analog audio can't quite reproduce. And I'll try to show a demonstration of what I'm talking about, where it all becomes basically fuzz, just like audio fuzz, and you kind of just static and fuzz over all the other sound in the scene that you should be hearing. And when I first heard that, I'm like, yeah, that's understandable, because that's some really high frequency kind of sound to try to reproduce. And it probably didn't sound that great. I can't remember, but on the VHS I can't imagine it sounded that great either. Probably the first time it was ever reproduced any good is, I don't know if the Fox Video LaserDisc that would have come out maybe closer to the late 80s would have had digital sound. I can't remember, but if it didn't, maybe the first time that sound was confidently reproduced was on the DVD release that came out sometime in the 90s, or that would have been late 90s or early 2000s, whenever the Artisan DVD came out in North America for Saturn III. But it was really funny watching those couple of scenes where the high frequency sound is just like the analog audio on the LaserDisc just cannot faithfully reproduce it, so it turns into just just
Quiet, please. You're blocking me. All right, that's it. Ready. Now. Hold your head still.
You don't mind, killing static, which was kind of funny. But other than that, it's really amazing how a lot of the clicks of buttons and this and that still have this wonderfully, just clicky sound. And
Launch 392, Captain James. Your presence path clearance soonest.
Most of the audio in glorious stereo is reproduced very well. And like I say, I can't stress enough how this version, both mostly both audially but mostly visually, is just a kind of an alternate fun retro way to experience Saturn III. Like, wow, this home video transfer was made a year after the movie came out in theaters. It's just like, I know I keep saying the same thing over and over, but it's just so cool to me to own you know, a LaserDisc that came out a year after the film came out in theaters, and during the time disco is still going on, and early 80s, and wow, life was maybe not quite as pathetic as life, maybe not life, but the world maybe wasn't quite as pathetic as the world is now, unfortunately. But yeah, you know, the older I get, the more I kind of, you know, long for, you know, these days of old. You know, it's just like, that's probably common for people who get on in years, but it's, you know, I can remember it being like, you know, I can remember it being like 2000, and I was like longing for 1980 even 20 years later. So it's not something that's a recent development, but I'd say in more recent years, the urge to go back to the early 80s or whatever, you know, just gets stronger and stronger, and you just buy things like this to kind of, oh wow, it's like a you know, antique kind of a relic of 1981. This, I don't know why I'm doing this, I should be holding the actual goddamn thing, but yeah, it's fun to, you know, frickin' get this on eBay and get this relic from 1981, the first LaserDisc release of Saturn III. And like I say, highly recommended movie if you haven't seen Saturn III. As I said, as far as the day I'm recording this, it's available to watch for free on TubiTV.com. Guess that pretty much does it for this showcasing video. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video. You're not going to appeal, are you? I wouldn't recommend it. It's been tried before.